So the measurements we're working with are this. I have the vertical measurements, the bust points, the waist length, the hip length, the top length, and we have the round measurements as well. The round measurements is the one we're dividing by 4 and adding our allowances, because I'll be adding my allowances as though I'm cutting it on the fabric. And we have the shoulder measurements and the nipple to the nipple measurements. You can still call your nipple to nipple bust span, and your bust points can still be called nipple points. Okay, so that the measurements right there. So from the raw measurement now, the biggest one is 36. It's the biggest one I'll use to fold. You're folding your fabric to use the biggest measurement to fold. That is the biggest measurement divided by 4 plus your allowance. Okay, so I'm adding my allowance here as if I'm folding the fabric. So the 36 divided by 4 plus 1 is what I folded there. 36 divided by 4 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So I have 10 inches there on fold. So the next thing to do now is to mark our vertical measurements. I'm coming down by 1 inch to mark my starting line. Then after that, the next thing is to mark the chest line, the nipple point line, the waist line, the hip line, and the top length. Please watch my other videos, subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I post a new video. Thank you. So vertical measurement, to get the chest line measurement, now you divide your shoulder by 4. Shoulder divided by 2 plus 1. So that's 7 plus 1. We have 8 inches there. That will be your chest line. Whatever shoulder you are working with, just divide it by 2 and add 1 inch allowance. There are several ways of getting chest line measurements or chest line number, but this is how I do my own. Shoulder divided by 2 plus 1. So from the start line, I'm coming down by the 8 inches. So my chest line there. Then you have the waistline there. The nipple point line. Then the waist line. That's the waist length. The next thing will be the hip length. Mark it on both sides and make it into a straight line. Then you have the top length. The top length I'm working with is 26, but all in all I have 27 there. That's plus 1 inch allowance on the length. If you are marking on the fabric too, you add your allowances, depends on what you are sewing. If it's a material that you just want to fold the edge, that 1 inch is okay for you. If it's a material you are raising in the inside with lining, you can use more than that and use the line to raise the fabric inside. So I have my starting line there, I have my chest line. Then this is a nipple point line. The nipple point is 10 inches. I have it connected right there. Then the waistline. Then we have the hip line. That's the hip length. You take your measurement from the shoulder to the nipple, from the shoulder to the waist, from the shoulder to the hip, and from the shoulder to where the top will be. So those are your vertical measurements. I have the video of how to take measurements. Watch that to understand better. So to place our shoulder measurements on our starting line now, the shoulder divided by 2 plus half. You mark it there and join it to the chest line on a straight line. So you mark the width of your neck. The neckline, you can use 3.5, depends on how wide you want it to be. But marking this as such is a stretchy material, so it should be something that your hair should be able to enter even without a zip. So I'm using 3.5 for the width of the neck. Then the depth for the back, I'm using 3 inches. With a dress that will have zip, it can be as high as you want it. It could be 1 inch deep. That's the back, because there will be a zip. By the time you open the zip, it will be easy to wear. But this now is not going to have a zip allowance, so the neck should be wide enough for the head to enter. So you connect the 2 points, that's the width and the depth. And the front neckline to be connected. And note that the wideness will be the same thing, that is the width of the neck for both front and back should be the same thing. It's only the depth that could be different. And this is my shoulder slope, that is on your armhole line. It came down by 1 inch. Then connect it to the neckline. So from that shoulder slope down to the chest line, we'll look for the midpoint. On the midpoint, come to the middle of that line and you connect it to the chest line, and that will serve as the armhole for the back. That's the back armhole. For the front armhole, the same midpoint there, you went in by ½ inch. Then connect those points like that. Okay, so we have our front and the back armhole right there. So now is to place our round measurements on our vertical measurement lines. So I'll place the bust measurement divided by 4 on the chest line. The bust is 33, 33 divided by 4. 33 divided by 2 is 16.5, divided by 2 again. That's 8.25. You mark it on the chest line right there. So you come to the waistline and put your round waist measurement divided by 4. On the hip length, we'll do the same thing. The round hip divided by 4. The round hip measurement divided by 4. Then you connect them. So I'm adding allowance now, 1 inch allowance on each lines. The bust measurement added 1 inch allowance, the waist and the hip. But the waistline I'm adding extra 1 inch allowance because I'll be teaching us how to put a dart on the waist. So the 3 lines now are connected. The bust measurement on the chest line, the waist measurement on the waistline, and the hip on the hip line. The allowance line now is the one I'm connecting. It's only the waist we added 1 inch allowance twice. One for seam allowance, the second one is for dart allowance. So they are connected as so. So the next thing to do now, this is where we make use of our nipple to nipple measurement. The nipple to nipple is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. 3.5 plus 1 plus half. So that's 3.5 plus half will give us 4 inches. So I'm going to be marking that 4 inches on the waistline, on the bust line, and on the hip line. That's 4 inches there. Then from the bust point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch because the dart will not touch the nipple point line. It won't touch that bust line, and it will not touch the hip line. But you mark the same 4 inches from the edge of the cloth, that is 3.5 plus half. The nipple point, the nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus half, 4. Then from the hip line, I'm going to come up by 1.5. I came down by 1 inch from the nipple point line, so I'm going to go up by 1.5 from the hip line, so that the dart that is coming from the waist will not touch the hip. Going up, it won't touch the bust point. And so I have a point like there, the waistline and the hip line. So I'm coming up by 1.5 from the hip. So at that point is where the dart will stop. So on the waistline now, connecting the 4 inches and mark, I'm connecting the lines now from the hip, waist and bust. Then on the waistline, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides of that middle line. So mark ½ inch on both sides. Then we connect it to the point. The point we came down with from the nipple point and the waistline. Connect them like so. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to watch my other videos. Feel free to ask questions and leave a comment. So that 1 inch we mark on the waist now, that is have on both sides, that's what we are going to sew, and that is the excess of the extra 1 inch allowance we added on the waistline. But if it's a material that is stretchy, that will not need a dart, you will not need that extra 1 inch we added on the waist. So this line I'm marking now is what you are going to mark. If the dress you are making is not going to have a dart, if it is a stretchy material, you're going to be marking this line I'm marking and not the first line I marked. You just need a waist allowance divided by 4 plus 1 inch, just like you mark the bust and the hip. No extra allowance for that if it's not going to have a dart. Then the down part of the top now, if you don't want it to be that straight, you can give it a small curve at the side. From the top length can come down by 1 inch. Remember that I have extra 1 inch allowance on the length of the top, so from the main top length you come up by 1 inch. Then you connect it to that same nipple to nipple line. That's the 4 inches we measure from the edge. Shouldn't go in more than that, so the curve will not be too much. Then you connect the 2 lines with a curve, like so. So with this now you have your front pattern, the front basic pattern. So I'm adding ½ inch allowance on the shoulder slope. And my ½ inch allowance right there for sewing. And right now I'll cut it out. I'm going to cut the shape we give the top and the down parts, the allowance, the side shape. Then I'm cutting the back armhole, only the back armhole, because I'll still use this to cut the back pattern. So I'm cutting with the back armhole right now. The shoulder slope. So now I use this to cut the back. I'm cutting the back, the wideness the same as the front, because I'm not putting zip allowance. But it is not a stretchy material that needs zip. You have to make it wider than the front by the zip allowance measurement. 1 inch is okay for zip allowance. So you arrange it like this if it's going to have a zip allowance. But like this, that is not having a zip allowance, because I'm marking it as if it's a stretchy material. It's going to be for a stretchy material, so they're going to be equal, and there won't be need for that, the dart. And such, you have been cutting the other first line, this line I'm touching right here, if it's not going to have a dart, because the extra 1 inch is for that. So I have it right there. So I use the front to cut the back. The lines I will be needing for the back now is the chest line. I don't need the bust point. I will need the waistline and the hip line. There's no bust at the back, so I don't really need the nipple points and the bust line. So I'll cut the armhole together right now. Just use this to cut the back armhole. And I can trim off the front armhole right now for only the front. Then the back neckline. Then the front neckline for only the front. Thanks for watching the video. If you find it useful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you. That's the shoulder slope right there. So the next thing to do now is to make my chest line to a straight line, the waistline, and the hip line. So now I'll still place the nipple to nipple measurement we use at the front, which is 4 inches on the waistline. Then from the chest line, I'm coming down by 1.5. Then from the hip line, I'm still coming up by 1.5. Mark 1.5, both up and down. Then we mark half on both sides of the line on the waistline. Then join them exactly the way we did them at the front. That's the middle straight line. That's the middle straight line. But the dart will stop on that 1 inch. 1.5 will measure from the hip line upward. Connect it to the 1 inch or half inch we mark on both sides on the waist. So with this, you can make a simple top, a straight, simple top. So we give it back to the same shape we have on the down parts at the front. So we have the both the front and the back having the same shape. And with this you can make a simple top. Thank you.